Morning. What's up, y'all? CB here at MBS Welding. Hollering at you this morning from the center of the Appalachian Basin. And what I got right here, a buddy of mine owns a construction company. They bought a new welding machine. They've got a few of these. I've done these before. I'm gonna need a skid for this new weld machine. Let's take a look at her. She's mint. Brand new. 225 Lincoln. These are great machines for what they're doing. They build a lot of steel buildings, and you know, hard to tell what all they be welding on, modifying. Could be running bar joists, bridging, who knows. But we don't want nothing really fancy for this thing. The foreman stopped by last week on his way back from the welding supply, actually, when he had just picked up that machine. And you know, I got material here. I had to order some tubing and stuff. And the idea here, we want to build a skid for this new welding machine. And a couple things that the skid's supposed to do. It should offer that machine a little bit of protection. We'll have a little bit of a cage action around it. And on that cage, we can put some hooks that'll give them guys a place to roll the welding cables up. And underneath of it, basically the bottom of it, we want some tubes, forklift tubes, and we're going to build it so that it could safely or fairly safely be picked up in either direction, either front ways or sideways, with a machine with forks and carried around, and you know, done in a way so it's not so easy to drop. And I tell you, with a construction company, it's undoubtedly that they're going to end up carrying that welder around with a skid steer, with forks on a skid steer. And man, if you're not set up with a little skid that's made to do that, it's really easy to drop one of them welders with a skid steer. Just the way a skid steer turns, it's especially on unlevel ground. If you just put forks underneath of one of them weld machines like that, it's hard to keep them on there on a skid steer. Not too bad with a forklift, but either way, if you put some tubes where you got forklift tubes and you got it made in a way that it can stop the machine from sliding either way, you could really save a lot of trouble on that machine. And them guys, when they're out there, you know, they can go a little faster and run with a little less worry if they've got at least one fork slid inside of a tube, where they know if they've got that fork in there and they've got the forks tilted back towards them, you know, that it's not going to come off of there. So let's look at what we got to work with here. I got some 6x3 rectangular tube. I got some 1.5-inch square tubing. One of these I probably won't use. I've got one that's 3/16 and one that's 1/8. I think the 1/8 would be fine for what they're doing. I bought some 1-inch round bar, and I can bend some hooks out of that. So let's get this thing in here and we'll get it unloaded and get going on this deal. So I want to get some of this rectangular tubing cut. I'm going to have two short ones, one in the front and one in the back, going in the short direction. Those will be the tubes that are actually bolted to the mounts of the machine where it's made to be bolted down. And then I'll have two more of those tubes that are longer underneath of those that run the long way. And those tubes, you know, that'll afford you forklift pockets whether you're going in the short direction or you're going in the long direction. You could still go into a fork pocket. And I've got 21 inches wide I measured on that machine. And I'd like those tubes to stick out 2 inches on each side. So I was able to cut this tubing in my chop saw with the roller set up like you see there behind me. If you watch my other videos, you've already seen me operate cutting material on that roller setup with those DeWalt 872 saws. When you make a cut with those saws, your blade removes 1/8 of an inch of material. And I don't set up a stop if I'm only going to cut 2 pieces of material. But I might not mark it and then mark it again. If this is 21 inches wide, I wanted 2 pieces 25 inches. So what I did was I made a mark at 25 inches and then I made another mark at 50 and 1/8. I added 1/8 to compensate for the amount of material removed when I made that first cut. So that 1/8 of an inch took care of the amount of the 1/8 of material that the blade removes. So I put a mark at 25. I set the blade to the left side of that mark, made a cut, pulled it up to the 50-inch mark, set the blade to the left side of that mark and cut. And that gives me the 2 pieces I wanted at the 25 inches that are the same length. So that's just a way that it saved me from making a 25-inch mark and then making a cut and then getting the tape measure out again and making a 25-inch mark and making a cut. You can go and be accurate for many cuts that way, and I think I might have mentioned that before, but you don't want to go too many. It will get off eventually. You know, your things are compounded if you do it. You know, if you're just a hair off, but you're a hair off 100 times, then now you're 1/8 of an inch off. So keep that in mind. Got some tubing cut, and on these short ones, I got to get my holes drilled. Got to get my holes drilled here for these 8 bolts that I'm going to use to bolt it down. Got 2 bolts at each corner. I've come to find that obviously those 2 bolt holes are the same center to center measurement, and those 2 bolt holes are the same center to center measurement. Now I could mark me a center to center on the pattern or center to center on the holes, however, but one of the things I'm going to talk about real quick is if I look at that left hole and that left hole and I want to know what that center to center is, I'm going to measure from the right edge of that hole to the right edge of that hole, and I get 18.5. I've mentioned that before as a method of getting center to center. If you have 2 holes that are the same diameter and you want to know the center to center, you don't have to guess on where the center of the hole is when you hold your tape measure up there. If you measure from the left side of one hole to the left side of the other, or the right side of one hole to the right side of the other, that might be an easier way for you to get a center to center. I talked about that before in a video, and I got a comment where one guy said he didn't understand it. And in that scenario, I was talking about the center to center. I gave an example by using the 3-inch channel legs of my welding table. I'll do that again because I think that's the best way I can describe it. That leg right there is a 3-inch channel, and that leg right there is a 3-inch channel. If I want to know what the center to center of those legs are, an easy way for me to do that would be to hook my tape measure on the right side of that 3-inch channel and measure to the right side of this 3-inch channel. And if I do that and I get 50 5/8 of an inch, then it's 50 5/8 of an inch from the center of this to the center of that. All right then, these tubulators are boltified on this Weldomatic. Let's set her over on them theirs. Miss Princess Diane is on the scene, making sure all is proper and well. She's gonna come out here and probably roll around in the gravel and get all dusty. So, got that put together right there. The next part of this is gonna be the side of this thing. Each side will be the same. And I'm going to use the 1.5 by 1.5 3/16 wall square tubing, which would be right here. It's going to come up and be a 45-degree miter, another 45-degree miter, and a post coming down to there, and then there'll be a post in the center. So looking at the side, it'll look like this. I've got some measurements wrote down. We got 4 pieces of tubing on each side. Square cut to a 45, 45, 45, 45 to a square cut, and then this square cut piece, which obviously if this is going to be 33 inches right there, we need to take off 1.5 inches there. So let's get this stuff cut, and we'll put 2 of these together and get them on there. All right, well, this inside diameter that would be represented, if I hook my tape right there and measure it right there, and I get that 43 3/8 right there, that would be the inside. So obviously if you got 1.5 inch post and 1.5 inch post, and we were talking about the OD right here, it would be 3 inches more, the 1.5 inches times 2. So one of the things I want to mention about like how I cut that top piece, normally that top piece, if you were just saying, well, you got 43 3/8 ID, you add 3, you're going to be at 46 3/8. I generally take 1/8 inch off of each one of those because of the way that you know, by the time you fit your tubing together, the end of your tube is not always gonna, I don't always do it where it comes out flush with the exterior is what I'm saying. So I'll take 1/8 off of that. And what happened on here was I took 1/8 off of each side. So instead of my 46 3/8, I cut it 46 1/8, long point to long point. If you measure this piece that I'm looking at, after I've hit the edge of it with the sanding pad, it's actually 46 1/16 of an inch, long point to long point. So if that's 46 1/16 of an inch, you know, when I'm looking at how I want to fit this up right now, I'm not really worried about squaring it up yet. but dimensionally I want to get it good. So how are we going to go about doing that? We see to the long point we got 46 and 1/16 of an inch. We want our OD to be 46 and 3/8 of an inch. So from right there at that 46 and 1/16, this thing needs to get bigger by 5/16 of an inch. 1/16 less than 3/8. We need to get bigger by 5/16. So on each side, from the long point of that top piece to the outer edge, or my outside diameter measurement, I need to go 5/32 of an inch past 46 and 1/16. Now, in order to do that, we only got 16ths on our tape measure. But every 16th is 2/32. So if I count past 46 and 1/16, 2, 4, I would be at 46 and 3/16 plus. You see where that's at? Like I've got that outside edge of that tube. It's between 3/16 and 1/4. Now I want to tack that one. And then when I put the other one over here, I'll hook the tape measure on the other side, and the outside of my other piece should be 46 and 3/8. That'll make both these even. This looks like it would be a great gap to weld up. It's perfect to MIG weld 3/16. I've got about an 1/8 inch gap. That's wonderful. So we're looking good. We'll put her together. Well, tape measure's upside down, but we're at our 46 and 3/8 with a good gap. Tack her up. Ain't really got to measure that again, just line it up with the other one. We got that first one right. Just tack her up like that. Should be good. I stuck that up there and I put a couple of clamps on it. I use my threaded heads on my jack stands to get this tube level. I put this torpedo level up here on the vertical tube, and if it was 90 degrees from where I had it right there, this should be plumb. I'm getting a little bit of a bubble to the right there. It's not that much, it's fine. But then if I look over here, same thing, a little bit of right bubble. Now, when you put something like this together, think of your tacks as hinges. I've tacked that right there. And right now, that top bar needs to go that way. Where I've got it tacked right there, I can force that top bar that way, no problem. But understand, if it's tacked right there, theoretically, if you tack it right there, and you try to move that top bar that way, this bottom piece is tight against here, so it's not going to let that happen. It's not going to cooperate when you go that way. As of right now, with just that tack right there, think of that tack as a hinge. I can hinge on that tack quite a bit. I could grab that top piece, I could take that clamp off there, and I could move that way, just like that, no problem. And you might say, well, you're going to make a gap right here. If that ends up being any kind of gap at all, it's going to be very little. So that's what's going to happen next is, I'm going to use the torpedo level, and I'm going to get this thing squared up and plumbed up. I can also look at it the other way. Now, I didn't exactly level it this way, but I don't need to. If I look at this and I got a bubble that's touching the line to the left, then I'll come over here and I'll set this thing where I got a bubble that's touching the line to the left, and I'm 90 degrees. All right, so that's a couple things to, you know, make it easier to put something like this together. Well, at this gauge of the stain, we're at this stage of the game where I cut my 31.5-inch pieces and stuck them in the center of both sides. I cut them 22 7/8 inch long and run between the parts I just put on. Miss Diane, she's telling us all about something. And well, everything was good. I did happen to notice, and this really ain't part of what I should be fooling with, but I did happen to notice that by putting this in the center, covers up that sticker. I don't think they give a damn. Really, when we put the welding cables here, it's going to cover that up either way. But I tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to warm that sticker up with my heat gun, see if I can get it off there. Sometimes when they're brand new, you can get them off there and move them. And that would only take a minute. And if, you know, if I don't do it, I tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to wait until I pull this out of there. Yeah, but I will try and take it off there for him. Anyway, so the next thing I want to move on to, this all looks good. It all looks, it's all plumb and square with the world. And Miss Princess Diane is the most beautiful shop cat and queen of the tool room of all time. And you know, we're doing it. Like we're rocking it. We're on it like ONIT on it. On it! All right, so next thing, I need to cut and bend some 1-inch round bars. Right, Miss Diane? We're going to cut and bend some 1-inch round bars to roll up some welding cables on. How about that, Miss Princess? Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah, that's a doozination that's coming up. Ain't it, baby girl? Bring in some 1-inch round rod and cut her up. Well, so right now, boss lady's mowing with the new tractor. Miss Princess Diane is being very princessy. A very beautiful princess, as normal. Now I've got to cut, I want to cut 6 pieces of 1-inch round bars, 16 inches long. And the way I'm going to go about doing this, I'm a mess, ain't I? The way I'm going to go about doing this, I've got a stop set up at my 16 inches. So I guess I'm just going to show you how I would cut these pieces with a stop setup. You may have seen this before, but here we go. How is the fountain water today, Miss Princess? Last thing was painting this thing black. I did that with an air gun. Rust-Oleum, gloss black, a little bit of hardener, thinned with acetone. Use 612 hardener, FH 612. Had the machine covered up right here. So let's put this back together. What is it, my sweetheart? Kitty face on the head, my dang.